The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
It's time for another Florida Beer Podcast powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. It is another episode at a beer festival. You know something, I'm kind of enjoying some of these beer festivals. I'll be perfectly honest with you. If you did listen to us last week, we had our episode recorded live at the North Miami Brew Fest, which is an absolute blast. And a complete 180 is the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail Festival that was recently held at Summer Crush Winery in Fort Pierce. And if you want to see two cities that very distinctly showcase the breadth of difference that there can be here in the state of Florida, that would be North Miami Beach and Fort Pierce, whereas North Miami Beach was at their Museum of Contemporary Art. Big, loud, exciting. The Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail Festival was held at Summer Crush Winery. It's out in the middle of their vineyards, some of the farmland that they have in St. Lucie County. It was incredibly cool, very chill. And what I thought was kind of amazing was how widely the people there ranged. Obviously, it was family friendly, so you did have some newborns, some infants, some kids that were playing around, having a great time listening to the music and dancing and so on and so forth. And then you had a lot of retirees that were just there to chill and relax and kind of enjoy. It had a pretty big push for people at the beginning, and then everybody was just kind of in and relaxed. Lines for beer weren't too terribly long, if there were some at all. Everybody basically had something until the end, which I know is kind of difficult sometimes. No tours of the winery, which is to be expected since the entire staff was working the event, but obviously their tasting room was open. And if you've never been, it is fantastic. As we spoke to them a couple of episodes ago, a lot of their wines are based with the swamp grape, as some people call it. It's better known as the muscadine grape. One of my favorite grape juices. I will search out just straight muscadine juice. They have it at Summer Crush Winery. It is utterly fantastic. Not a big fruit juice fan, but I will search that out. Yes, there were some beers that were on tap available for sale at the winery that used some of the grape musts used after the production of the wine. Did not get to try any, however. But there's a lot of great breweries that are in the area. That area, of course, being Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Indian River County. Very well known for agriculture and citrus and sport fishing and some really fantastic beaches. And obviously now breweries, the winery, and there were also a couple of distilleries. There's one that's open right now. I know A La Mirada is open in Fort Pierce, and there's a couple more that were at the event getting the word out before they open in Vero Beach over the next year, and hopefully will be fully operational by the time the next Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail Festival comes around. Now, one of the things that I always mention with both the blog and, of course, the podcast is that craft beer is much more than just production. It's much more than just business in terms of something that you can purchase and consume. There's also a very strong tourism aspect to it. And ale trails like the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail really help to solidify that and show that going to these places, visiting these breweries, and seeing what's in the area is a win-win for literally everybody involved. And so for this episode, the first thing that I wanted to do was actually talk tourism. There were representatives from each of the three counties that are represented in the Treasure Coast. And while I was sitting on the front patio of the Summer Crush Winery's Visitor Center, drinking an amazing porter from Ocean Republic Brewing and enjoying a fine cigar that the good people at 21st Amendment Distilling gave to me. I can't thank them enough for that. I spoke to the three people that you're about to hear on the podcast. They're each from their respective counties' tourism and marketing boards. First person that you're going to hear from is Ian Centrone, who is the tourism program manager for Discover Martin, which is Martin County, the most southern of the three. From there, I spoke with Kirk Funnel, who is the director of tourism and marketing for Visit Indian River County, the northernmost of the three. And then right in the middle is St. Lucie County, where we were in Fort Pierce. And the director of tourism and marketing there was Charlotte Bierley. I spoke to each one of them, obviously, to give a little bit of flavor for their respective county, some of the things that you can expect to go visit there. Obviously, we spoke brewery and winery and distillery for each of those. And then the one thing that I always found very interesting is those great mom and pop destination restaurants, which are, of course, exactly what you want to go to after a long day at a beer festival like this one. So we're going to be chatting once again, Ian Centrone from Martin County, Kirk Funnel from Indian River County, and Charlotte Bierley from St. Lucie County. We're just going to jump right in. And Martin County is, I guess, the southernmost of the three counties that make up the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail.
Correct.
And I'm going to go ahead and put this to you first, since you're the first person that I interviewed. Let's just go ahead and start with the Treasure Coast.
Sure.
Why did it get that name?
So the story of the Treasure Coast actually begins just over 300 years ago. There was a fleet of 11 Spanish ships that actually wrecked offshore between the St. Lucie River and Cape Canaveral. And then these ships were carrying a bunch of gold, silver, jewels, and during the sinking, those are actually scattered across the ocean floor. So to this day, that treasure still washes up from time to time on our shores, and that kind of lent itself to the moniker of the Treasure Coast. And so today that incorporates, we have Indian River County in the north, St. Lucie County in the middle, and then Martin County as the southernmost county.
That's kind of awesome. And I would assume that with Martin County, you get a lot of people that are coming up from, because you basically, your southern border touches Palm Beach County. And I would assume that you get a lot of people that are coming up from Palm Beach County to sort of day trip and so on.
Absolutely. We get a lot of overnight visitors from South Florida. So whether that is Palm Beach County, whether they're coming from Miami, but it's also a really conveniently located destination for Floridians. So we get, a lot of visitors from Tampa, from Orlando, and then also out of state, nearby destinations like Atlanta. It's a popular road trip destination.
For Atlanta?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely. The other the nice thing about our location is that we're within 2 hours or less driving time from 4 international airports. So you have Miami, you have Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, and then Palm Beach International. So there's just a ton of routes. From Stewart, the closest airport is West Palm Beach, which is about a 40-minute drive. So it makes it really convenient for whatever corner of the U.S. you live in, and even internationally, to access us.
That's kind of amazing. Usually when people are coming over, whether it be from Fort Lauderdale or Orlando or even Atlanta, what are some of the big spots that generally get the most traction, shall we say?
Sure. So the area is really well known for its fishing. We draw a lot of anglers between our inshore, our offshore, our surf fishing. A lot of people are looking for our outdoor experiences and our aquatic adventures, because here in Martin County, we have over 100,000 acres of parks and conservation lands. We also have over 22 miles of beautiful, uncrowded beaches. So whether you're looking for a surfing lesson or a paddle tour or scuba diving, there's always something to do outside, which is definitely keeps things fun throughout the year. And with weather like this, you can go surfing in December. And then in terms of attractions, we definitely have a few standout attractions that a lot of people seek out when they do come to Martin County. The Florida Oceanographic Coastal Center is on Hutchinson Island. It's an incredible campus where people can actually learn about different conservation techniques. You can meet rescued sea turtles, you can feed live stingrays, and they recently opened a huge expansion, which is called the Ocean Eco Center, which just further extended their footprint. So that's really popular with families to adults to grandparents. And right across the street from that is the Elliott Museum, which is another really phenomenal local gem. They have an incredible collection of antique cars, boats. They have some aircraft. They also have a Major League Baseball collection, some very cool artwork. It's always changing.
Interesting. That I guess I never expected in Martin County, which is pretty cool. Definitely want to talk about the beer because you've got a couple of breweries represented here. I know Ocean Republic is in Martin County. They're in Stewart.
Yes, correct.
And I'm trying to think of who the other Martin County brewery is.
So we have the other member of the trail is our Honey Company. They're also based in Stewart. So she owns some apiaries. She is a master beekeeper. So she recently opened up her downtown storefront and she specializes in different honey-based goods. And then she recently got into making mead.
I was going to say, she does mead as well.
How she, got folded into the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail. Yeah.
Which is interesting because for most other trails, it's just beer. Mm-hmm. It's just, they always call it an ale trail, even though, most of them are ales. There's some lagers out there, which is fine. And I like the fact that it's not just beer. We're sitting at a winery and you're talking about a meadery that's on there as well. I find that actually there's a cidery in here as well. It's kind of an interesting, I guess, a spreading of the wings and not keeping everything so focused on just beer. Not that I don't love beer.
I think the idea when we started the trail was really we wanted to make it inclusive and we wanted to really promote all of the different craft brewers. But then we also had places like where we're sitting today, Summer Crush Winery, the meadery, the cidery. We wanted to just showcase the diversity of the growing craft scene here across the Treasure Coast, across the 3 counties. And so, it's been really fun just kind of inviting all of those community partners to be a part of this.
Are people surprised that the Treasure Coast is getting a scene like this? Are people surprised that they can go to Martin County and get craft beer and get mead and really sort of expand, what, I guess, more than just the macros?
Yeah, I think it's always a nice surprise. Whenever I go to a new destination, that's one of the first things that I look for to see if they do have a craft brew to check out.
Thank you so much. You're just like me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always fun to be able to direct people to those. And I think it's a scene that's just continues to grow in popularity across Florida, as you know, I'm sure across the country and across the world. So we're excited to hopefully have some new additions to our scene here in Martin County very soon.
I was just about to say that, I definitely want to ask everybody from each of the 3 counties where you would go, because I'm getting hungry. I don't know about you, where to go for a nice post-festival meal. And the first people that I'm going to mention, and I think you know who I'm talking about, would be Conky Joe's, because not only are they really awesome, and I'd love for you to talk about them, but they're opening up a brewery as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Conky Joe's is one of those local legends. It has been around for generations. People know it. They love it. It's located right on the water.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
The food is incredible. The conch is phenomenal, but everything, their drinks, the whole atmosphere, the vibe, when you go there, it really feels like you're kind of stepping back into that old Florida charm of yesteryear, which is great. And as you kind of teed up, they will be opening up an extension hopefully by this summer, which will include a brewery. So not a ton of details are available just yet, but it's something that we are very much looking forward to. And I know that the community and our visitors who come back year after year are very excited for.
Awesome. What are some of the other great places in Martin County that, the legendary places like Conky Joe's?
Definitely. The Dolphin Bar is another really popular spot. It was formerly the Outrigger, owned by Frances Langford, who is a radio and old school film actress that again has an incredible tiki kind of vibe. It's right on the water, incredible fresh seafood. And then, if you're looking for something a little newer, a little more contemporary, maybe Drift, the Drift Kitchen and Bar at the Hutchinson Shores is another phenomenal oceanfront restaurant. The hotel itself is beautiful, but the restaurant is really, really great. They have, everything from pizza and burgers to fresh fish sandwiches to steaks. And of course, their wine list and cocktails are phenomenal.
That's amazing. If people are interested in taking a trip to Martin County, where should they start?
I would start in downtown Stewart. Stewart's known as the sailfish capital of the world. And that's really the county seat. So the downtown district is so lively. There's always something going on, whether you're shopping for a special souvenir or whether you're interested in popping into the colorful galleries. And so the Lyric Theater always has an ever-changing calendar of performers coming to town. And just this past weekend, they had triple Grammy-nominated singer Paula Cole.
Seriously?
Yeah. So
my God, she's still touring. Oh my God, that's
she's
amazing.
Still touring, and they get some really great.
That answers the question.
names.
The Cowboys have all gone to Martin County.
That's where they are. They're right here. Yeah, exactly. They all came to Martin County.
Some people are going to know that joke, and the rest of them are going to be like, what is he talking about? That's amazing. Awesome. And so to get more information on Martin County, where's the best place for people to start to plan their vacation?
Yep. To learn more, feel free to head over to discovermartin.com. And then you can also follow us across social media platforms at Discover Martin. And we're always sharing, travel tips and new openings and events. And then on the website, you can actually see some sample itineraries. You can find out more about all of our hotel partners, lodging options. There's a full restaurant, dining directory. And then we also have a calendar of events up there that changes daily. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Ian, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Go get yourself some beer.
Yeah, right. We've earned it, huh?
Exactly. And I will start off with just kind of a snarky question, because Indian River County, I always felt, was a little bit known more for fruit, especially citrus fruit.
Yeah, Indian River County citrus. You see it everywhere.
Well, exactly. Is it still a part of who Indian River County is, or was it just the past?
Very much so. We still have, the only you can pick the oranges right off the tree. In Indian River County, you can order them for your family. You can pick citrus right off the tree at Schatz Groves. Yeah.
Okay, I need to pause for a second.
Right?
That's amazing.
You can go out there and just pick your own, and you can also, there's also countryside citrus still out there, Peterson Groves, where you can just, it's like a literally stop on the side of the road, and you can pick up your citrus and other household favorites, and can bring them home to your family.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
My mind is literally blown.
It still has its roots, and it's definitely one of the staples in Indian River County.
That's awesome. But obviously there's a lot more going on in Indian River
Yes.
County, and you are the northernmost county of the three counties that make up the Treasure Coast, correct?
Yes, we are. Sebastian, Fellsmere, and Vero Beach.
So I would assume, because you're so close to like the Daytona Beach area and so on and so forth, that county's name is escaping me for some reason.
Volusia.
Volusia, thank you. That you get a lot of Orlando, Volusia, maybe even North Florida people that come down for day trips.
Yeah, we definitely see some. We're actually seeing more from the Miami markets. People want to escape the busy town, busy city, and come up and just kind of enjoy relaxed vibes that we provide here in Indian River County, and not worry about the traffic or paying for parking or anything like that. So, it just provides a simpler escape, and we definitely see people from Orlando and sometimes Daytona, but we kind of offer the same type of things as maybe Daytona does it on a more bigger scale, but definitely from Orlando and Miami.
And I was going to say, with the relaxed vibes, there's still a lot to do in Indian River County other than picking the citrus. What are kind of the big attractions that people really tend to go for?
Well, when I go out and travel and talk to people about Indian River County, if they ever even heard of it, Vero Beach or Sebastian or Fellsmere, that there's like three things that usually come up. It's about the citrus. It's about the Disney Resort. We have the only oceanfront property in the continental U.S.
You're totally right.
Yeah. Only oceanfront Disney Resort in the continental U.S. They have one in Hawaii. So it's the continental U.S. And they also know us for the Frog Leg Festival. We have a Guinness World Record festival for frog legs. And
forget the beer. Frog legs.
Frog legs,
as definitely. In like ribbit,
right off the thing. And they sell their frog leg and alligator platter every time in January, and people know us for it. It's Guinness World Records, and it's something that no one ever. It's kind of funny, but it's something that people know us for, which is kind of weird. But obviously, when people come there, they know about the beaches. They know about when you go there, you're not like getting overcrowded by all the chaos that's in a big city. You just have wonderful local restaurants, locally owned businesses that you just feel like you're at home.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously those locally owned businesses include breweries, of which,
of course.
And I'll be honest with you, what's amazing is, especially in Vero, there's a couple big breweries, Walking Tree and American Icon.
Yep.
You've got some other breweries in the county, but two of the exhibitors that are here at the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail are distilleries that are opening up in Vero Beach.
Yes.
What was the process of getting that? And in the end, will you welcome and expand the Wine and Ale Trail to everything?
So we're love to have them here. It's a 21st Amendment distillery and Indian River Distillery. They're great to work with, and we're excited for their opening. I believe both of them are scheduled to open either at the end of this year or beginning of next. So hopefully sooner rather than later. It all depends on, the county stuff. But we also have Walking Tree, American Icon, Pareidolia, and Mash Monkey are the breweries that represent Indian River County.
And what's nice is with Pareidolia, and we'll talk to Pete here in a little bit, because he was one of the co-founders of the trail.
He was one of the ones that started it all.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're about a block or two away from each other, I think.
They are.
Which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, they are. And they both have their unique flavors and trends, and they're both great in their use way.
I guess with the culture of what Indian River County was and currently is it amazing that we have crafters like this, or is that just how Indian County is always rolled?
I mean, we're very lucky to have them in our county. Each one of the breweries and now new distilleries are going to be uniquely different. They provide a new aspect to our local feel and charm. It's just a really, not only a great place to go and hang out, but a really awesome part to be part of the community.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And so one of the other things that I'm always interested in, especially as I've been drinking a fair amount of beer.
That's what you're here for, right?
Exactly. But I'm also getting really hungry. And one of the things that I love, especially on coastal Florida places like Indian River County, are those sort of mom and pop, almost legendary restaurants, the things that people go to and they bring their kids back to, and the kids grow up and they bring their kids to. What kind of places would you go to after an event like this? Because you got a hunger and you just need to get a good meal before you head on home.
I don't know if I can just pick just one.
Well, you don't have to pick just one.
Right?
Give me some names.
But I know for a fact a great place to go to, a location, is the ocean side of Vero Beach. On the barrier island, there is no chain restaurant, so you're going to get those locally owned and operated restaurants that really care about their food and bring great natural or local flavors to their cuisine.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the citrus background, have you heard a lot of not just the restaurants, but the breweries themselves using that citrus to really tie in and make a beer that is uniquely Indian River? Not just, here's an orange beer, but here is an Indian River County beer.
So we do have some of the breweries that do make some. However, we did have brewery on the trail, Orchid Island Brewery, that still brews. And they still distribute, but they don't have a tap room right now. But they infuse all of the local grapefruit, oranges, tangerines, everything that's grown here. They infuse all their beers with Indian River citrus, and you can find those in usually a store here in Florida.
Awesome. I actually do remember them when they had the tap room. They were amazing. They were quintessentially Indian River, which was great. I will leave you with one last question, because I do have to ask this.
Yep.
And if you say chicken, I will hurt you. What do frog legs actually taste like?
Chicken. No, I'm kidding. No, it's a little bit like a chicken wing. I don't know if it tastes like chicken, but it definitely has its own unique texture and flavor. I mean, it's deep fried, so if anything, deep fried kind of tastes alike, right? But
okay, there we go.
They're good. You definitely have to try one before, on the bucket list.
Have you had any of the beers here today?
I have.
What has been some of the stuff that you've really enjoyed?
I'm really impressed with Pierce cider, their cranberry cider. That was really good, and that's not really a beer, but I was pretty impressed with it.
Hey, that's the most amazing thing. Awesome. Right. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What I will definitely start with is the Wine and Ale Trail, because usually a trail like this only focuses on either a city or a county or a very select group of people, whereas the Treasure Coast, you are working, with Visit St. Lucie, you're working with Martin County and you're working with Indian River County. And that's correct. I guess, how does that really work, since you technically want people to come to the area and visit everybody, but you also want people to come and visit you?
Sure. So if I could back up just a little bit on the Treasure Coast and just that name in general. So the three counties work together collaboratively as the Treasure Coast, which in itself kind of already had its brand, especially amongst locals. That name came several decades ago from a local media outlet that started kind of calling this region the Treasure Coast because of the history of the Spanish ships that shipwrecked just offshore. They were loaded with treasure headed back to Spain in 1715, and a storm came in. Almost all of them were shipwrecked, and all the treasures went onto the ocean floor. And so those treasures still wash up today. And so we have, treasure hunters and people with metal detectors walking along the beaches hoping to find their own treasure. So we already had this organic brand, if you will. And when we started seeing other areas, whether it's cities or regions coming up with, ale trails and whatnot, we took a regional approach because at the time, one of our counties only had one craft brewery. So you can't really do a trail with one. Yeah. So we were already working collaboratively. So we're like, let's make it the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail. So that's sort of how it came to be.
And really with the trail and promoting the trail, who do you really try to go for? Because, like we were talking earlier, there are fishing sports people that will go for that. And that's a very specific niche. You've got a very specific niche of, maybe snowbirds or families that want to find a nice beachy sort of location. With the Wine and Ale Trail, who tends to be the demographic for something like that? And is that demographic changing?
So that is a great question, because when we originally were starting this Wine and Ale Trail, we had all of our existing data of just the general visitor, and that general visitor, for the most part, tended to be an older demographic, kind of the retiree coming down mostly during, the winter to get away from the cold. And we positioned this when we pitched this idea to our stakeholders. We said, hey, we're going to be able to reach millennials, and this was 8 years ago. We're going to open up a whole new audience by this. But then we are seeing today that it's really a wide demographic of folks. There's older people, retirees, there's youngers, there's families.
Coming in, it was amazing because we saw it literally, like you said, it was a very wide swath of people. You go to other, I guess, more standard beer festivals, and it's very much the younger, we don't have kids, we will stay up till 3 a.m. going clubbing sort of event. But they also look at it a little bit more differently in terms of people at events like that tend to get there to get drunk. Right. Whereas there's been a lot of questions. Who are you? Where are you? What do you have? So on and so forth.
Absolutely. And our area, the Treasure Coast in general, is not known for its nightclubs. And, not to say we don't have great entertainment, but, we don't. Miami's awesome. Orlando's awesome because they have those nightclubs that are open all night if you want to go dance and whatnot. We don't have that here, and that's okay because we cater and we appeal to a different type of visitor. I would say our ale trail allows, whether it's a family, because pretty much all of our partners on the trail, their establishments are family friendly. So we cater to, that whole demographic, that wide demographic. And it kind of coincides with what our destination has to offer.
Awesome. And I definitely want to talk about St. Lucie County, especially since we are in St. Lucie County right now. We are in Fort Pierce at the Summer Crush Winery.
That's correct.
The host of this festival, which is, I guess, sort of a natural given the space that they have here.
They definitely have the biggest venue of all of our partners. You're here. We're looking at it. I mean, Theater of the Mind. It's outdoors. It's a gorgeous day in Florida.
It is beautiful today.
We couldn't have asked for. It's what you coined the Chamber of Commerce Day, right? So there's a cool breeze, but the sun is shining. And, everyone's just kind of outside wearing short sleeve shirts and shorts or a long sleeve shirt. Like you can kind of be comfortable in anything today.
Yeah, it's funny because especially with Martin County, just letting you know, they've got the long sleeve tech shirts, which I'm starting to realize are kind of the uniform of Florida. The
the dry
shirts.
fit shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with St. Lucie County, and obviously you've got Fort Pierce and you've got Port St. Lucie and you've got others. You've got a fair amount of representation with the breweries that are here at the festival.
We do. We have the most partners in St. Lucie County. We are definitely the largest county, so I think geographics plays into that a little bit. We're the most populous and we're the largest. We also, I'll do a shout out to our brewery, Sailfish Brewery. They were the first craft brewery on the Treasure Coast.
Really?
Yes. Yep.
Interesting. I will say their original location was incredible. It's now the home of Pierced Cider Works.
Yep.
But it's literally two old houses.
Yep. Two old houses in historic downtown Fort Pierce.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful.
It's really cool.
I love it. Are people amazed at the number of craft breweries and the quality of the craft breweries that are in St. Lucie County?
I mean, I am, being a resident here, but yes, I think just that small town feel when you go from brewer to brewery or to the winery, and just really having those locals that a lot of them are multi-generation locals that own these breweries or the winery. They've been here for generations. And so to me, that's a special thing when you walk into a local craft brew establishment and the owners are like, oh yeah, I've lived here my whole life. My dad grew up here. My mom grew up here. And we're still kind of that small town vibe, and we still have that vibe throughout the Treasure Coast. So I definitely think that in itself makes it special for sure. It's just part of the fabric and the culture. And, along the way of these locals, they found a little enthusiasm for craft beer and decided, you know what, I'm going to open up my own craft beer brewery here in my hometown. And that's what happened.
It's been long enough to where I feel I can ask this question and give a positive response. How has the community, the county as a whole, and obviously the three counties that make up the Treasure Coast as a whole, how have they embraced the craft beer, craft cider, craft mead, craft distillery sort of scene that has really started to take root here?
I think it has been very positive. And I say that because we, leaders and, maybe policymakers tend to look at it from an economic development or an economy standpoint. And so many of our brewers here have grown leaps and bounds to where they now have like major facilities, and they're canning, and they're kind of
big distribution that's coming out, especially with Sailfish and Walking Tree, Islamorada.
Their satellite location, their sister location is in Fort Pierce, and they're based out of Islamorada and the Keys.
But their main distribution facility, their production facility is here by the Fort Pierce Airport.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, from that aspect, they're feeding our local economy and they're providing jobs to people. So from a community standpoint, I think it's been very well embraced. And who doesn't want to support, their local small business?
Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. And obviously there's much more than just beer.
Yeah.
So I'm getting hungry. I don't know about you. I've asked your two predecessors from the other counties this question. Where should we go for a good post-festival meal? And the first people that I will think of, only because I've been there numerous times, is Cobb's Landing.
Okay.
Which is a particular favorite of ours.
Which is right down the street, from a couple of from Sailfish. And, like your previous guest said, it's so hard to pick one, but I would say, Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie. Fort Pierce especially is known for its fresh seafood because of its proximity to the Fort Pierce Inlet being right there. We have commercial fishing boats that are coming in and out of there every day. I mean, you can buy fresh fish off the docks in Fort Pierce. Like it's kind of a little local secret.
Really?
That I'm giving away.
Idea.
And they will post it every day on their Facebook page, what they have and what's for sale and how much it is a pound. And you can literally go down to the docks and buy it. I mean, it doesn't get much fresher than that.
I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea.
That's why you're asking these questions. You're uncovering all the secrets.
I will let you go with just one last question, which is, of course, the most important question of all. What are you drinking?
I am drinking the raspberry sour from Mashed Monkeys.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
It was great to hear a lot of awesome things about counties that may not be as well known as places like Broward or Miami-Dade or Hillsborough, and so on and so forth. Obviously, they all have some fantastic places. I've been to each one of these counties. They are wonderful to visit, and I cannot wait to go back. But we are here to talk about the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail, obviously, and to talk a little bit more about the trail itself. We're going to be speaking to Pete Anderson. He is the founder and brewer of Pareidolia Brewing. They are in Sebastian. He is one of the co-founders of the trail, along with the original owners of Summer Crush Winery. He was there since its beginning, and I figure if anybody is going to talk to me about the history of the trail itself, Pete's the person to do it. Like I told him, I promise I will be heading to Sebastian sometime soon so I can finally sit down with Pete and just get a good, solid Pareidolia interview or two said on the podcast. But for right now, we're chatting with him specifically about the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail that he helped found and that we were celebrating that day. So I will say once again, you are no stranger to these microphones. I know that. I just hold it right here. Right. And I guess I will start by saying, before the Ale Trail started, how many craft breweries, how many craft alcohol producers were in the Treasure Coast? Because it didn't seem like it was too many, but it had to be enough.
Before the trail began? Well, I can tell you the first meeting we had here at Summer Crush to discuss starting the trail, there were 4 breweries open, 2 in planning, and that was it. We had no distilleries. Oh, and of course, Summer Crush. We had Summer Crush. But yeah, there was Summer Crush and 4 breweries and 2 breweries in planning. So now we're up to, I think, 10 breweries, or we had 9 breweries, a cider works, 2 distilleries, a meadery, right? Winery. So yeah, it's been cool to kind of watch it all evolve. This is the biggest event we've seen so far, the biggest turnout, more members than we've ever had before. So the weather gods are smiling down on us and saying, good job.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. So I guess why start the trail? Who really kind of started it? And what is the process of getting an ale trail started? It seems like it was a bit daunting.
Well, thank goodness we had all the folks at the Chambers of Commerce. It all started with a phone call from Gary Roberts, who owns Summer Crush Winery. And I tell everybody the story that he called me and wanted to start an ale trail or a wine trail. And of course, I was smart ass and said, be a pretty short trail there, Gary. You're the only winery, man. So after we got through me hassling him, I invited all the brewers that I knew, both open and in planning. And then Gary reached out to the St. Lucie Chamber of Commerce Tourism Department. And then Indian River got involved as well because it crossed into 2 counties. And now we're into 3 counties with Martin County as well. So the Chambers of Commerce really sat down at the meeting with us, and we all kind of hashed out what we thought should happen. Started with a logo, an idea, and just kind of, evolved from there. They had some money that came in for tourism, which helped, because at that point, we didn't really know where to get funding to get it off the ground.
And I find it interesting that the counties were it sounded like the counties were very receptive.
Very receptive, very supportive, and still are, even more so now, I think. For something that has never existed, to get the kind of response that we got was humbling. It really was. I was impressed with how everybody just both feet in, said, let's do this. This is going to work. This is going to be a great thing for our area. So, once Gary reached out, that's really how it started. He reached out. I had been talking about trying to start something, but we were in the middle of our own new brewery, trying to get through the day, just business as usual. You don't have time for anything else. But Gary's phone call really made me go, you know what? We need to do this. If we don't do it now, it's going to get harder as more and more people show up. So let's start now, get it right, dial it in as more and more members join and open on the Treasure Coast. So it's evolved into just a really, really professional, outstanding trail. I've done trails all over the country, and this is right up there with the top of them, honestly.
And as a business owner and brewery owner, are you starting to see some people come into Pareidolia because you're on the trail, because they went to one location, they found out about the trail, and, we got to take a look at all the other ones?
100%. I would say every month at least we get a number of folks who are just doing the trail. And they would not have made it to our little fishing village of Sebastian, which is pretty much, at the north end of the Treasure Coast. We're not a real tourist destination. We're not a highly populated area. So you have to want to come up and check the area out. But a good portion of folks who are just doing the trail want to come up and check out our brewery, Mash Monkeys Brewery, and then work their way south where, most of the rest of the members are. So, they come in specifically to try to get their stamps, or I guess it's a virtual stamp.
I kind of want to talk about that because obviously the Wine and Ale Trail started as a physical map that you unfolded and you got a physical stamp at each of the locations. But now,
old school.
I know, and some trails are still like that, but with the signage that's here, you have gone completely virtual.
That's pretty awesome. And that's Charlotte and all you guys. That's the Chamber of Commerce folks. We were just having, our annual meeting, and it just kind of came up that printing costs are going up and we're all burning through these maps. I don't know how many maps we ended up printing, but it was, I want to say, probably tens of thousands. And that adds up, plus the paper. We try to, everybody wants to be as environmentally conscious as they can. So with all the QR codes and online and younger folks, everything's digital. It just made sense. Let's go there. And once that launched, I was so excited because we're taking the trail into the next phase, which was just super cool. But I enjoyed the map too. It was we still get folks who will bring in this tattered old thrashed map that's been sitting in their glove box or whatever in their junk drawer, and they'll pull it out and they only have like maybe 2 or 3 more left to go. But it's pretty heartwarming to see that they held on to that, So, yeah, it is. It's a vintage thing. It's a classic thing. There is still something to be said for that tangible map that you can hold up. And then if the people finish the map at a particular location, we're supposed to take that to say, okay, yeah, here's your prize. Thank you for. A lot of them are like, can I just keep it? Can I please just keep it? They want to put it either in a frame, or there were a lot of stories associated with each of the stops. So that's a part, I think, the invisible part of this trail that people don't get is the experience of traveling around to each of these locations, the people they were with, the stories they shared, the experiences they have. So that's a tangible thing that they have for that.
Have you heard of any really awesome stories from trail runners that have completed or are in the process of completing the trail?
My favorite one was pretty long time ago. I think these folks came from like Idaho or something, and they were only in the area for one day. And so their goal was to hit them all in one day. And Pareidolia was the last place they had to hit. And they were all in a really, really good mood by the time they got to Pareidolia. And I was so impressed and proud of what they accomplished that I came out of the brew room to do a group picture with them all and thank them all for their efforts, because it was pretty monumental. I mean, I think maybe back then there were maybe 8 or 10 locations, but still to come to an area that you're not familiar with and have to get to everybody while they're open during business hours and do it safely, which they did. They had one DD in the group, which was super cool. Right away, I'm like, what do you want a soda? Do you want whatever? I think I might even throw in a T-shirt to that driver and said, you're a hero. But that was probably the coolest story, that they came and they learned about the trail at one location that day and just said, we're doing this because we're flying out tomorrow.
Okay, so as you're sitting there saying this, I'm trying to figure out, I think my field producer and I have tried to look at what it would take to do the entire trail in one day, but we were planning it and it was going to be a long day. So I'm impressed that they did that all on their own.
Like I said, all the way around, I was floored, and they showed me their maps and they're like, yeah, we did everything today. So that was probably the most extreme, but more often than not, it's just people that'll have their map out and we just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit, find out where they're from and how did you get to this area? Why are you here? You know, everybody's got a great story, and I love stories. I love telling stories. I love listening to stories. And this whole Ale Trail thing just like lets all those stories flow and be shared with everybody.
So what's the future of the trail going to look like? Because obviously it's the wine and ale trail because we are at Summer Crush Winery and there are a lot of other breweries. But in that time since it opened, we've opened up a cidery. Looks like we have 2 distilleries that are going to be open by this time next year.
Yeah.
Are we looking at a name change? Are they going to be welcomed in? What's going to happen?
Well, they're here now, which I think answers that question. No, the whole thing has been to encourage people to go visit where products are made. You know, these days, so many corporate things are made overseas by some faceless corporation. It's like, no, come to these locations where these people, blood, sweat, and tears, are going into the products they make to make other people's lives a little bit happier. You know, and that's not just because of the alcohol. It's the whole thing. It's everybody I know that's on this trail does things for charity. They do things for their local community. They host events that are benefiting others. So as far as I'm concerned, and I think probably everybody on the committee would agree, if they're producing something here on the Treasure Coast, they're encouraging tourism and they're doing good things for their community. By all means, come join us.
It seems like this is the best way to see the real Florida.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Well,
100%.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your coverage.
In all, the Treasure Coast Wine and Ale Trail Festival was fantastic. It was a very chill vibe. I definitely want to thank Pete from Pareidolia Brewing and obviously Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin counties, especially Ian Centrone, who reached out to me to introduce me to the event and help set up our broadcasting and everything. So thank you all so much. Excellent shout out to our hosts at Summer Crush Winery. Like I said, the wines are really good, but I will go over the hill and through the woods for that muscadine grape juice. It really is phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. Next week, we are heading to Miami. It's going to be the first of 3 episodes, once again in Miami-Dade County. We've got some people that are coming back to the podcast because it's been a few years since I spoke to them. And in those few years, their business has boomed even more than I think they expected. But before we do that, make sure to visit all the counties that we have on the podcast. You can find them on our show notes, all the information. And obviously, you can drive there and go visit some of these amazing, amazing locations. You got great food, great beer, great wine, great spirits that are coming soon in some instances, and plenty to see and do. All of that information is going to be on our show notes. If you have not done so, please make sure to follow us on social media. We're at FL Beer Blog on Facebook. If you're on Twitter or Instagram, that handle is Florida Beer Blog. We're also on the web at floridabeerblog.com, floridabeerpodcast.com, and the Florida Beer Podcast is a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, which is available at floridapodcastnetwork.com or FPN Insiders on Facebook. That's our closed group. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich, field producer Steve Picala, executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network, and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Lagonier. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Dave, your host and author. We will be back next week with another great episode of the Florida Beer Podcast. In the meantime, enjoy your day and drink Florida craft.